G'day fuckheads. I originally wasn't going to make any videos while on holiday, but then I realized this is my biggest ever month for my YouTube career, and I'm too much of a Jew to not capitalize on my own success, so here we are, in a nice little Airbnb in Los Angeles. Being in LA, I wanted to make a video that really encapsulated my surroundings. As I look outside, I see the stunning view of the ocean, coupled with the blue skies. It's just a shame that's ruined by such a dirty shithole. That's right, LA is disgusting. I don't know why it's so popular at all. Anyway, on the theme of dirty, I realized I had already done a video on Skaven, so I needed to draw inspiration from another source. I then realized, I'm in America, and America is an ever-expanding parasitic creature that consumes everything in its path to sate its unquenchable hunger. Only the brave warriors of China and the Middle East dare to stand against it. So from that comparison, the Tyranids came out as the perfect faction to cover today. Also, people keep telling me that Tyranids are like the Australian wildlife, which is total bullshit. Our wildlife is way more scary. Warhammer 40K is a very grim setting where a lot of naughty things happen, and I mean that in a bad way. There are so many bad guys it's obscene, like most settings have like one or maybe two bad guys, and all the good guys have to band together to stop the one or two groups of bad guys. Well, not in 40k. In 40k, none of the good guys, and I use that term sparingly, like each other, and there's like 4 or 5 groups of bad guys. It's just not a good time, to be honest. Today we're covering the greatest threat to the Imperium and pretty much everyone else, the Tyranids. But MajorKill, Chaos is way scarier than the Tyranids and will cause much more damage to the Milky Way. Shut your fucking mouth, Timmy, you stupid cunt. Chaos look like emo scout boys compared to these parasitic fucks. At least with Chaos, they are always welcoming you to join them and have great employee benefits like gaining superpowers or being able to rape elder women. With Tyranids, they just eat you and it's really undignified. Trust me, by the time we get to the end of the video, the Necrons will look like beacons of hope, Abaddon will look like a teddy bear, and the Eldar will still look pretty gay. Let's get into it. Out of all the races and factions in the Milky Way, the Tyranids are definitely the ones that stick out and don't really belong. This makes sense considering that they originated outside of the galaxy and have only recently started invading. The Tyranids work as a hive mind which, despite being a dire threat to all life, including intelligent and unintelligent races, they aren't actually that bright. They literally have no motive other than the basic evolutionary instincts to evolve and reproduce. This is what makes them scary. They aren't inherently evil or have evil thoughts or enjoy being sadistic fucks like Chaos or Dark Elder do. They're just following their primitive directives. Although their attacks on the Blood Angels was actually motivated by purely wanting to kill them, so they are actually on the cunty side. Despite their lower tier of intelligence, the Tyranids have adapted strategies for dealing with each of the opposing races, including Chaos. When I say low intelligence, I'm referring to their unsustainable way of living like I mentioned, coupled with their complete lack of desiring anything other than consuming everything. To combat the Imperium of Man, the Tyranids follow quite an intricate system. Firstly, they will dumpster on some poor cunts aboard a ship or a space hulk. They'll kill everyone aboard except the biggest Chad they can find. They will let the Chad survive, but infect them with the gene stealer DNA, which is undetectable and turns the infected host into a super horny fuck machine. The Tyranids will then allow the infected Chad to return to his planet, where he'll start fucking everyone he can get his dick into, spreading the gene stealer DNA. Gene stealers are these human Tyranid hybrids, and they're pretty fucking nasty. Anywho, after a few generations, there are thousands of infected humans on a planet who are loyal to the Tyranids due to the whole hive mind situation. So like, stage 1, Jerry gets his dick wet and hands a bunch of American kids that infiltrate various parts of the world's government. The next step is when the actual Tyranids want to get their dicks wet, so all the American gene stealers create uprisings in an attempt to destabilize the world, so it's not in very hot shape to defend against an unadulterated intergalactic rape fest. Another benefit of creating sex slaves is that the Tyranids transfer the data from the infected hosts into the hive mind, which allows them to learn more and more about the planet they wish to skullfuck. This is mainly the reason why the Tyranids are so successful. You want to invade a planet, so you cultivate thousands if not more people on it, who give you all the info you need about it. Then you sabotage the shit out of it, just in time for you to rock up and rain down your unholy death upon them. Also, did I mention that Tyranids have natural anti-psycho measures? Tyranids create things called shadows in the warp, which is like a radio jammer for the warp, meaning that when a Tyranids invade a planet, the planet cannot send out a distress signal via the warp or call for backup, as their communications are all cut off from the rest of the Imperium. So yeah, it's really not good. Pretty much every victory won against the Tyranids is a Pyrrhic one. A good example of this is humanity's first contact with the Tyranids, a massive hive fleet called Hive Fleet Behemoth. Behemoth ravaged numerous Imperium planets without mankind even noticing. It was only through the effort of a sick cunt called Inquisitor Cryptman that the Ultramarines were informed of the threat and were well prepared for the battle. And they still got raped. Their initial battle with the Tyranids ended in total failure, as they lost several more key planets. Their chapter master had to basically throw the Codex Astarte in the bin and create a new plan if they wanted to win. They prepared their standoff on the planet of Macragge, in the heart of their own system. Every single Ultramarine was deployed in one of the greatest battles ever, and even then they were losing until they sent their capital ship into the Tyranid Hive Fleet to Akbar the shit out of the Xeno scum in the form of a warp drive overload. Hive Fleet Behemoth had been defeated, but the Tyranids' rapage of the Imperium had only just begun. Numerous Tyranids had actually splintered off from the main Hive Fleet and had grown in size. These were eventually also put down, but it took a big fuck off effort to do it. Like, the Adeptus Mechanicus had to literally set their sky on fire to save one of their planets. The Second Tyranid War took place about 250 years later, and this is when the Tyranids began employing the use of gene stealers and actually more sophisticated tactics. Because like I said, the more these cunts eat, the smarter they get. I guess they aren't entirely like Americans after all then. The Tyranids remain as a major threat against the Imperium. Now, let's have a look at the Tyranids' interactions with the Tau. Fortunately, the Tau have so far remained reasonably unscathed by the Tyranid threat, and by that I mean they only lost a few dozen planets. The Tau are actually more suited to fighting the Tyranids due to their extremely versatile combat strategies, making it hard for the Tyranids to adapt, as well as employing the use of drones and long-range weaponry. This meant that when the Tau were attacked by Hive Fleet Gorgon, they actually won the battle and drove the Tyranids off the planet, although pretty much everyone died and the planet became uninhabitable, but that's beside the point. From there, the remainder of the Hive Fleet won to a new Tau planet and would have eaten it if it weren't for the random arrival of Necrons, who once again drove off the Tyranids. The Tau was so excited to be saved by these unfamiliar Xeno-Necrons, until the Necrons then fucked up the planet anyway, which kinda sucks. Hive Fleet Gorgon was eventually destroyed when the Imperium rocked up and teamed up with the Tau. That just goes to show that all you need to do is bring Xenos together is by finding bigger, scarier Xenos. The Tyranids' encounters with the Necrons are basically non-existent at the moment. When Hive Fleet Behemoth first entered the Milky Way, it actually rerouted its course a bit so it would avoid a Necron tomb world. Guess there isn't much food to be had on a desolate world filled with conservative murder robots. As I mentioned earlier, there was a battle between the Necrons and the Tyranids, however, the Necrons won pretty soundly and Hive Fleet Gorgon ran away. Interesting enough though, the Silent King's hatred for the Tyranids has led him to form an alliance with the Blood Angels as the two factions teamed up with that kind of shit. The alliance was actually quite respectful, which is very unusual. But once again, when you're dealing with the insectoid equivalent of America, you need to push past your comfort zone. Onto the Eldar now. You'd expect these little pussies to just bend over and take it, but the Eldar actually have taken it quite hard already from multiple sources, so they're kind of sick of taking it by now. Hence, when the Tyranids attack them, they hold up really well. Considering the Craftworld Eldar don't really fuck each other, the Gene Stealers can't do shit. The Tyranids also have a hard time catching the Craftworld Eldar, as they are quite mobile. If the Tyranids do end up catching up, more often than not, the Eldar will emerge victorious. However, despite this, there was an interesting case where the Tyranids destroyed an entire craft world, but not how you'd expect. After attacking the craft world, the Tyranids were defeated. However, a little worm got on board the ship and ended up eating all the Eldar souls that were stored away, and eventually became a massive unkillable soul worm that fucked the entire world in the craft world in the ass. Another craft world that was taken by the Tyranids reveals something actually quite horrifying about the Tyranids. So, there's this theory that pretty much all the other galaxies in the universe, or at least all the neighbouring galaxies to the Milky Way, have all been absorbed or in the process of getting absorbed by the Tyranids. So there's millions and billions of hive fleets floating around the border of the Milky Way, slowly leaking in. An Eldar craft world attempted to leave the Milky Way to try to escape Slanesh once, and it returned many years later, with the entire crew having been infected by the Tyranids and turned into gene stealers. This, coupled with the fact that every new hive fleet that enters the Milky Way enters from a different angle, means at the very least they're present in all, if not most, of the neighbouring galaxies. Spooky. Onto the Orcs. The Tyranids just see the Orcs as a stubborn source of food. Due to the complicated tactics required to defeat the Tyranid hive fleets, which most Orcs lack, Tyranid encounters with Orcs usually end up with the green boys just getting their ass sucked on until they prolapse. And finally, arguably the most interesting matchup, we have the Tyranids' interaction with Chaos. I always enjoy watching bad guys fight it out to see who the biggest and scariest baddie is, so I was pretty erect when I read about a massive fuck-off battle between the two factions. Basically, an Imperium planet detected a large Tyranid hive fleet on its way, but they didn't want to abandon ship because the planet was home to some pretty fuck-off powerful Chaos artifacts that would be quite problematic if they fell into the wrong hands. Despite a staunch defense featuring the Grey Knights, the Imperium defense were quickly overrun. The death of millions of humans in a short span of time activated one of the Chaos artifacts, and it spawned in a massive demon army, numbering in the millions, led by a bunch of greater demons, and boy oh boy did the motherfuckers die that day. The issue was, however, that the Tyranids' natural warp banishing aura severely weakened the demons. On top of this, the Tyranids had actually created a special hive fleet called Hive Fleet Kronos that was designed to defeat Chaos. This hive fleet had a greater warp banishing effect, as well as focused on ranged combat instead of typical melee shit which demons love. So from this, we can literally see the Tyranids are a genuine threat to every single bit of life in the galaxy. You might be wondering why the Necrons even give a fuck about the Tyranids, considering that Tyranids actively avoid them, and they're not really competing for resources. Well, this is because the Silent King wishes to return his people back to organic flesh and bone instead of grumpy, decaying robots. In order for him to at least attempt to do this, he requires to have some organic matter in the galaxy, something which the Tyranids are kind of, stealing. The Tyranids come in a lot of shape and sizes, too many for one video, due to them having multiple basic forms and then even more variants on top of those basic forms. They can really identify as whatever gender they feel like at this point. I'll list some cool forms now. I'll list all the forms, but I just really can't be fucked, there's so many. Maybe for another video, but we'll start it off. Firstly, they're the Hive Tyrants, who act as like superpowered commanders of nearby Tyranid forces. They're granted a significantly stronger sense of connection to the hive mind than most other Tyranids, hence they're way more intelligent. I would compare their strength to a custodian. They're often guarded by tyrant guards, makes sense, who are likely created using the DNA of dead space marines, which is fucking heresy. Another nifty little cunt we have are the Lictors, who are these sneaky little stealthy fuckers. They can easily camouflage and often act as recons and assassins. They gather enemy intel on forces by devouring the brains of their enemies, which is a bit hardcore. Often employed in ambushes or raids, these little shits are something you really don't need in your life. On the other end of the size scale, we have the Bio-Titans, which was the Tyranids' response to other faction class Titan war machines. Not much to say about these guys other than they're massive, and they're like final bosses you face in God of War or Dark Souls. They just fuck off massive kill machines. And do you want to know how the Tyranids reproduce? Of course you do, you fucking pervert. Tyranids have Norn queens, which are basically just massive vaginas hidden away in special chambers aboard hive fleets. Their job is to give birth non-stop, which makes them somewhat similar to the Skaven women. The only real difference is that Skaven women get non-stop raped, so the Norn queens probably have it better. I don't know why this is a thing, but apparently the Tyranids also have dominatrixes. Interesting name, but it's quite fitting I suppose, considering they are massive female rape machines, and they are also psychic. Maybe an accurate name after all. And finally, the last cool Tyranid type I'm talking about today is the Trigon, which are these dope-ass serpent-looking motherfuckers that burrow into the battlefield and randomly emerge to eat people. The cool part though, is they actually have like these Black Panther shit armor plates that vibrate and generate energy that can be released on command to create a shockwave, so it's pretty overpowered actually. So if you guys want me to go over all the Tyranid types, then show this video some love. Let's say 30k views and 3k likes, and I'll do another video covering all of the warrior and all their forms and shit. As the Tyranids are a hive mind, they don't really give two shits about much about individuality or hero characters per se. In saying this however, there are a few uppity cunts that the Tyranids have created as experiments or just for the gags. These include Swarmlord, who is arguably the Tyranids' greatest warrior available. He is a variant of the Hive Titan who is immortal. Whenever killed, which usually requires a chapter master or tier character or above, or just an exterminatus, the Swarmlord's consciousness is instantly saved and backed up to the hive mind and to be rebuilt stronger. Definitely a bit of a problem child for the Imperium. We also have another pain in the ass called the Death Leaper, who is a Tyranid's ultimate assassin. It's an advanced form of Lictor that possesses an intelligence far greater than your average Tyranid. For example, instead of assassinating the leader of a planet, which would only create a martyr, it tormented the leader by killing his friends and family in front of him instead. breaking his sanity and ruining the morale of the entire planet, making the Tyranid invasion that much easier. That's fucked up. Another naughty little cunt we have is the old One Eye, which is a remix of a Carnifex. It's basically just an immortal version which regenerates from every wound. The only wound it hasn't recovered from was a plasma blast that blew out its eye and brain, hence the old One Eye name. The creature eventually returned and began raping people left, right and centre. Some Ultramarines were sent to deal with it and were seriously struggling. One of the Ultramarines pulled out a cunt move and shot the beast back into its eye socket that had already been shot out, which really was quite effective. I should try that. There are quite a few more unique Tyranids out there, but once again, I cannot be fuck listing them all. But like I said, if this video does well, then fuck yeah, I'll make a follow-up covering all of the unique Tyranids and the abilities and their history. And that pretty much covers the Tyranids, guys. You've got their history, scope, and some of their spicy creations. If this video does well, I'll stick to 40k for a little while longer, but at the moment, I'm happy jumping between the 3 settings. If you didn't already know, we're creating a book together as a community and Chapter 1 has been completed. Chapter 2 is pretty much already completed now, so you can go and vote for the winner of that chapter if you like, or just check out the chapters so far. We're not far off the #1 spot on the website, and if we get that #1 spot, that'd be really cool. I'd do something weird like, I don't know, like leak my nudes or something, pull a bit of a Kimmy, but yeah, let's do it. Let's get #1, why not? Help a brother out. Also, the uncensored Tyranid Gene Stealer image is on Patreon. I only need to donate $1 to get access to that extensive library of Warhammer art, made exclusively for this channel. Take that, Italian Spartacus, you faggot. Join the Discord for more memes. Peace.